need some kind of funnel. It can be digital or it can
Okay.
be, in person.
Okay.
Speaking in some way is the fastest path because people then know who you are, they know your energy.
I see you everywhere, like on like Instagram, all over the place. And I felt like I know you, but I don't. So this is kind of our first time actually meeting. But like I went on your website. I was like, oh my gosh, I see Nara Yoon on there, right? And
Mhm.
she's actually someone is actually inside our like clinic community. I was like, oh my gosh, like we're associated, and then Nicole, I've been talking with Nicole Kozin for years,
Mm.
we've talked a lot about like kind of our business, our community models. And then, I see you on our pelvic con, right?
Mm. Mhm.
I think you were speaking at her event last year, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was in September of this year.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What an insane community, like
Yeah.
what they put together and like you speak in there, like it's insane. Like this pelvic floor like movement in the US, it's just like gone bonkers, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a wonderful event. I mean, I really think they've done an amazing job in just such a short time, really,
Yeah.
a couple of years. That's fantastic.
Well,
Yeah.
she's a very humble and caring soul, so and she's doing it from the right place. And I think people see that in her
Yeah.
Facebook group. She's also surrounded with her husband who is really good at marketing.
He is. He's a good marketer. We were talking when I was down there about, all the some
Yeah.
of the businessy stuff and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I remember me and Nicole, we spoke years ago before they kind of launched their community and paid product. And I was speaking with the husband, we're just sharing like kind of, different like community and business models. And we're just talking about that. And so I still remember that day. And then like a few years later, like she just kind of took off. Right. So, yeah. And then I
It's
was looking
great.
back at Aaron LeBauer, I think
Oh,
you
yeah.
spoke at PT BizCon,
Yeah,
years ago.
maybe.
I think it
Yes.
may even be
Yes. I
pre-COVID.
never spoke at one of his live events. You know why? Because it was March of
Yes.
2020. But I'm sure I've done something online with him. And we met actually at Greg Todd's event.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So
In
it's the same round
person.
of people. So it's great.
Yeah, it's
And
all the
actually,
same
but
people. Yeah.
but back to PT BizCon, I actually spoke at that virtual event as well because we were supposed to have it like in his hometown, right? And it
Yes, right. It was
happened.
supposed to be like in North Carolina or something.
But I
Yes.
remember you were one of the people I was looking forward to meeting in person, there. I was like, who is Jessica? Like I see her all over the place. She's like, like about these niche practices. And it sounds like Greg Todd as well.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. He's great. I love
Yeah.
Greg. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to see him in Florida this year,
Oh,
so
good.
yeah, I'm running my own event down there this year. And yeah, we're gonna swing by Florida. We're gonna swing by. I think he's out in Tampa, right? So we'll hang out.
Okay. Yeah. Tampa area. Hmm.
Yeah. So I've been following, like I said, I've been following you for like years, and I think on Instagram you talk a lot about like niche practices, like women's health, like coaching. So, I'll go on your website. Like, how many people have you trained or coached over the years, Jess?
Oh, thousands at this
Wow.
point. Probably actively in our programs, we have 500 or so at a
Okay.
time, but we have, actually, we probably have more than that because we now have an advanced mentorship, which is essentially um, starting to shift. We're going to refine that as an alumni association in 2024
Hmm.
because I've been doing this now since well, I've been doing digital health coaching since 2006, but I actually started teaching almost simultaneously to the launch of doing the coaching because I was working at the women's hospital in Houston,
Okay.
and my boss down there, Fatima Hakim, was an early pelvic health expert, when the field was very, very new. So she's kind of a generation older than me. But she actually, Tracy Scher and I used to work together at that practice. So that's
Wow.
when we were very young. And when we were pretty young and just out of school, we were in this very subspecialized area. I was only about 3 years out of school or so when I went there to, focus on women's and pelvic health, which was a very rare subspecialty at the time.
Yeah.
But what she did for us was she essentially threw us on stage before we knew how to do anything. She was like, "You're teaching at CSM this year." And we were like, "Okay." So it was good because, and like, probably less than 6 months after graduating from PT school, when I was still working in an outpatient orthopedic clinic, I started taking students. And in fact, Blair Green, who has a great practice in Atlanta, she was one of my first students. So, I was always teaching almost immediately when I started practicing. So
Wow.
same thing happened. So I was still working at the women's hospital at least part of the time around 2006, and Fatima was interested in all the stuff I was learning, because I was learning functional nutrition at the time. I was starting to learn health coaching, and none of that was very well known at all. Like,
Yeah.
no one had heard of functional medicine, functional nutrition at that time.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't expect it to be helpful at all, but then it was helpful for my patients. And so she was like, "Well, teach us what you're doing." And so she would put on a course, and, they would host it. So it started very organically that everything I was doing converged. So now, 2023, where it's like 17 years later. So we've trained thousands of people in more than 60 countries. We just kind of stopped counting at that point. And
Wow.
I used to travel a lot. Like every few weeks, I would be
Is it
anywhere.
like workshops and like events, you mean? Or yeah.
Yeah, like workshops or on all
Okay.
those stages like you were talking about.
Yeah.
But that stopped pretty abruptly. I did a ton of it in 2018,
Okay.
and then and some in 2019, but then it fairly abruptly stopped. And then I got a first wave COVID infection personally.
Okay.
And so I
I
that
got a
then
third
got
wave, so.
good, lucky for you. So I was really, really, really sick for like 2 years.
Oh,
And I
geez.
still have long COVID. In fact, just today I was
Oh,
at an
wow.
ozone IV appointment. So like I still have to do things to take care of my
Yeah.
body, but I wasn't even physically able to like walk through an airport for probably 2 years. So I had to change everything about my practice. But the good thing was it was always, I didn't have to change everything about it because it
It was all
had
virtual, wasn't
been,
it? Your practice?
yeah, it was
Yeah.
always telehealth, but the travel piece changed. But that still wasn't too difficult because
Yeah.
I was already doing a lot of like podcasts and digital
Yeah.
speaking and things like that.
Yeah. Wow. So do you still maintain like a virtual practice as well, Jessica, or is it just mostly working on the con ed side?
It's almost entirely continuing education now, but I
Okay.
do have 2 clinic days a month because I
Okay.
just love it.
Yeah.
And we have a digital group program for people
Yeah.
with endometriosis that we're wrapping up the 2023 version, and we're kind of putting that on hold for right now because I'm focusing on, really scaling the educational
Okay.
side, because we've
Okay.
done a lot of testing of that over the last few years, and we're very, very clear on what our community is looking for.
Okay. Cool.
So that's where we're shifting our attention.
Cool. Cool. And then on and I guess the outcome of the con ed is like you train them to actually be virtual, like I guess like coaches as well, right? Like
Correct.
specifically to women's health, right? Is that what I understand, Jessica? Yeah.
Yeah. So our women's health coach certification program is the only one in the world that has been third party approved by the NBHWC, which is the oversight organization for health coaching schools,
Okay.
that then you can actually get a job at a major
Okay.
hospital system or something like that. Now, you certainly can start your own business as well, but you don't have to.
Can you bill under like physical therapy fee codes under that or no?
Well, you can bill health coaching soon.
Okay. Health
Probably.
coaching, but not physical therapy, right? Because it's not physical.
I mean, it depends. I would say that it depends because health coaching integrates with any clinical skill set. So we work with
Okay.
a lot of physical and occupational therapists, but we
Okay.
also work with total career changers who are just shifting to becoming health coaches, professional health coaches. We, who maybe were attorneys or in HR or something before that. But we also have a lot of nurses, acupuncturists, physicians, gynecologists. We have a cancer physician right now. We have all
Hmm.
kinds of lots and lots of fitness professionals, yoga teachers, midwives, anyone who focuses on women's health through the lifespan.
Yeah, this is interesting topic because I meet a lot of, like I work with, there's a close to 1,000 clinics inside our community, and I talk about this all the time with, people in our community saying like, oh, like, yeah, maybe you could do more like virtual like coaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think like what the struggle I always hear is that, well, I don't want to be a life coach, like I think that word is quite dirty, like, well, not dirty, but like I think they're at conflict with it because like I'm a professional, like I went to like so many years of becoming a physical therapist, like I'm a physical therapist, I'm not like a life coach or a health coach, like, so
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts when like you hear a physical therapist say something like that.
Well, for me, I think that health coaching and honestly, life coaching, like the skill set of coaching in
Yeah.
its purest form, is a skill set of communication skills.
Okay.
So it even before I was doing purely health coaching, when I was integrating this skill set into my physical therapy practice, it makes my job much, much easier. So we have lots of PTs with hybrid PT and coaching practices. And sometimes we have PTs that stay doing mostly PT, but they change how they practice. And how it changes your practice, it makes you obviously work a lot less hard because you're learning to connect with your client at the beginning, making sure they are motivated to lead this journey, not you dragging them along
Yeah.
from day one. And so you should, I think actually every clinician should be coaching their clients, their patients from day one. So you're both aligned with the goals, with what health is defined at. Also, at the end of the day, we don't really fix people in the way that we think we do when we're trained in PT school. Like
Yeah.
ultimately, we're creating an environment in their bodies, in their lives, in their mindsets for
Yeah.
them to heal. We don't like put them back together in the same way as a mechanic, you know?
Yeah. That's interesting, so so yeah, and just back to what we said earlier. So you're saying that like if as a physical therapist, like you could actually in theory bill it as a telehealth, or like it sounds like there's new fee codes coming out that you could bill under like coaching, right? Is that
Yeah,
what
and
I'm
you
hearing,
could
Jessica?
have, yeah,
And is that
and
a
you
trend
can
that you're seeing right now with insurance in insurance companies and stuff, or
that they will cover health
yeah.
coaching. Yes, so we just have codes now, and it's just kind of rolling out.
Okay.
So,
Amazing. Yeah.
but honestly, the vast majority of our students do cash
Cash.
practices.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
much easier. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I've done since day one. But you can really just the way you can do with hybrid coaching is you can run people through a health coaching program, which is all of the lifestyle things that they have to change. What's their
Hmm.
bedtime routine? When are they exercising? What is the quantity of exercising in their day? What does the quality of that look like? What's their social support network?
I
What
like
is
this.
their
It's more like a
nutrition?
holistic approach to care, not just like, hey, let's just look at, your knees right now.
Hmm. Right. Because
And
if
I'm
you
just
think
gonna
about
use
it,
all this physio jargon to like do something to your knees, and then like it's gonna hurt.
yeah, it's nothing like that at all. My perspective is okay, if I have someone who comes to me with an ACL repair, that's a little
Okay.
specific because they have a step-by-step recovery. But let's say they have a meniscus tear that they're not going to recover, right? That then it's like they're not going to surgically do anything about. Then it's about, why did you tear the meniscus? What do you want to be able to do with your body? What, how are you, when in your schedule are you going to exercise? Are you on an anti-inflammatory diet? Are you taking any nutrient support supplements? Are you working with anyone else on your team? Are you falling into depression when you're not running with your friends? Like, we really have to think of their entire lives. So we're not necessarily life coaching them, and that we're like, I don't really know what people are thinking of when they're thinking that, but it's not really very fluffy. It's actually very concrete. What
I
does
love
it
this.
mean to you to have a healthy knee? And
Yeah.
in your whole life, what are you going to do to get there? And then what resources do we need to put in place to do it? So, if I have a PT coach in one of my students who wants to do that, who wants to fully recover knees, they'll put people through a health coaching program, and they can do it telehealth. And this is what I do with women with endometriosis who have chronic pelvic pain. Most of them need hands-on physical therapy at some level for the pelvic floor. They might need dry needling, they might need manual therapy, they might need visceral mobilization. So I used to have a physical space. So I would essentially refer to myself if someone lived within, 25 miles of me, or anyone else. Or now I work, I have clients in Singapore or wherever. I help them find a physical therapist that's going to know what they're doing.
Oh, I like this.
So
So your
you,
treatment
yeah.
plan involves like sending them off to maybe a clinic near their house to do some type of like physical assessment, and you just put that part of your treatment plan or your care plan, right? Is that
Right.
what
So
I'm?
that's, yeah. So like the coaching may include any number of health interventions that they
Okay.
need to explore. So with endometriosis, they need an excision surgeon on their team. They need a
Yeah.
gynecologist on their team. They may need a mental health professional. They need a pelvic floor PT.
Okay.
Some of them have yoga teachers. And often, especially with the PTs and the fitness professionals, I'll do a co-treat session with
Yeah.
the patient, the PT, and myself on telehealth.
Okay, interesting. So what would the typical treatment plan look like, like, and how much is that done virtual versus how much is done through, I guess, with one of like at a physical like brick and mortar location with a partner, right?
So it that depends on their PT. So I'm
Okay.
functioning as their health coach,
Okay.
and unless I've like self-referred, which, like I said, I don't do that
Oh,
really
I
anymore.
see. Okay, so you're gonna have your own care plan, and part of your care plan might include like 8 visits from the physical therapist, right?
Right. They might go see a physical therapist. That
Okay.
physical therapist will essentially create their PT health plan.
Okay.
Now, if I'm the physical therapist too,
Yes, if you're the
I
physical therapist and you're taking patients from a different state, okay, let's just say that. Like,
right.
let's
So
just say, yeah.
let's say somebody else was doing their health coaching. Now I could do both just under two separate windows, right? I could do their health coaching program, and I could do their PT. That's what most of our PT students do in my
Okay.
program.
Okay.
Unless they want to do the coaching way across states, way across
Yes.
countries, then they refer people who are outside of their scope for PT to other PTs, and maybe they
Okay.
collaborate with those PTs in some way if they're special, if they have a
Okay.
subspecialty. But if, the other PT is great, then awesome. That's where they do the PT. So if you're doing both, you could. So if I'm doing knee rehab and I'm, as part of the health coaching program, they need knee rehab, I'll say, okay, you can come see me next Tuesday as a physical therapist under my physical therapist umbrella. And we're going to spend a whole hour or half an hour, whatever the time is, really focusing on specific exercises for exactly what you need for your knee recovery.
Yeah.
That's a PT session that you can do telehealth or in person, depending on what's appropriate for that client and
Yeah.
what makes sense. Like, you might live in Amarillo,
Yeah.
Texas, and this person lives in like Corpus Christi. They're probably not going to come to your clinic, but you're still licensed in Texas, so you can just do telehealth.
Yeah, 100%. Like I love this. What do you call this? You call this a hybrid, like
Hybrid PT and coaching. Mhm.
hybrid. And so if a nurse is doing it, do you call it a nurse health coach? Is that kind of like you're labeling with like
Well, the health coach is the health coach.
okay,
So you can be a physical therapist and a health coach. You can be a nurse and a health coach. You can be a
okay,
doctor and a health coach. So the doctor who's training with us now, she works in a hospital, she sees patients, and then she also has her own separate practice in health coaching.
okay. Interesting. And so and how do you see this as like a trend that's happening or is it like is it kind of like where pelvic floor physiotherapy was like maybe 3 4 years ago and like now it's like taken off, like do you see that's happening with this like health coach that's done by maybe like a PT or even like a chiro?
Oh, for sure. I think it's accelerating, probably even faster than PT, kind of pelvic PT specialty,
Okay,
mostly because in the pandemic, so many people had to shift to a telehealth model that
okay.
the clients are much more comfortable doing telehealth programs.
Yes. And the
And
docs are doing it right now anyways, right?
yeah,
So like they're already like setting like the bar of like this is what's normal.
yeah. And I love to do group health coaching programs for similar niches because
Okay.
the people in the community help each other so much just with that collaborative understanding.
Yeah. And I guess you would group them based on injuries and like demographics. Like that's what you
Right.
would.
So
Yeah.
with our students, most of them, I strongly recommend they just choose one niche and go all in because
Yeah.
then you get really, really skilled there.
Yeah. Which is, and most people are doing pelvic floor or
Can't I would say cancer recovery, fatigue,
okay.
perimenopause is a huge
Okay.
one, menopause, fertility,
Interesting.
postpartum recovery is a big one, just
Okay. So it's
pregnancy.
going after it's going after the problem,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, the challenge.
Jessica, that's genius. How come more and more people are not doing this in the profession? Like, what's going on here?
I'm happy to train them. There's so many people looking for this,
Yeah,
especially, gosh, I can't overstate how many people are looking for this in the world of perimenopause, menopause, and longevity because it's
yeah,
so complicated and their options out there are so limited to either kind of one size fits all
okay.
hormone replacement or nothing, you're fine, or like antidepressants. Sorry, you're just kind of
Can we
crazy.
also talk about the money aspect, Jessica? Like, what's the typical like care plan for yeah, like a health, like let's go back to the example with like that ACL, right?
Right. So let's say you were entirely focused on this would be a great niche like runners with and even better like postpartum runners with knee pain or something like that, right?
Yes.
So if you're focused on postpartum runners with knee pain, then I would set up a a, a coaching program where you give educational training around that integrates all of those things. But the even more valuable thing that people don't know is valuable until they get into it, which is why in some sense have to sell the information but give the transformation, if you will,
Yep.
is that then people meet with you every week for roughly 6 months. I wouldn't do a coaching program shorter than
Okay.
3 months, but 6 months is a nice sweet spot for
And
most.
that's a once a week thing?
Once a week or every other week. Our endometriosis program was about 6 months for every other week.
Wow. And this is group or one-on-one?
That was a group program.
Oh, wow. Insane. And then
So if
and how many people in a group?
I usually cap it at about 35, but I would
Holy smokes. Do you
start.
feel it at 35?
Oh yeah, for sure. I would
Really?
start at 5 or 10 just to get comfortable. But in fact, I would recommend all new coaches start one-on-one just so they get good at it. But
Yes.
within a year, you could do 5 or 10.
And then like what's your typical like charge per session? Like I guess you're charging $100, right? Right?
No, no. Well, we charge by the package. So
Okay.
one-on-one for 6 months would be 12,000. And
Wow.
for
Geez.
the private for the group program, I think we charged 3,500, something like that.
Wow.
But it might have been 5,000. It's in that range. I do now in the clinic, when I see people one-on-one, it's about 500 an hour, but I've been
Yeah.
doing this for 17 years. I would say people start at between 50 and 150 an hour, something like that.
Wow.
But you can easily scale because you can do group models.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I really, what you're telling me right now, like I'm kind of like, wow. I was like, why don't I see more like PTs doing this when they're all screaming about how much student loans they have, about the declining reimbursement model. And up in Canada, like there's an insurance reimbursement threat going on about like them saying like they're not even covering like physio if you work with an assistant or like even like some of the like anyways, it's another story, but like it's just mind blowing.
I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer, right? Because more and
Yeah,
more we're getting these recovery gyms. Like you can go in and lay in a red light thing for like
yeah,
$100, right?
yeah,
So if people are going to pay for 3 minutes of cryotherapy at
yeah,
literally $100, or a vitamin C IV, which, okay,
yeah.
they're nice, but you can absorb almost the exact same amount of vitamin C orally, and it's way cheaper. And most people don't need that. There are a lot, it's a rapidly growing trend in, baby boomers wanting to play pickleball. And the
Yeah.
more niche and clear you are around longevity, menopause, I would say fertility is still a very strong niche as well. And postpartum is a very
What's the
strong
biggest
niche.
niches right now you're seeing right now? Like,
Menopause for sure, longevity and wellness. So, like, what people wanting to live actively until their 70s, 80s, 90s,
yeah,
100. There are
yeah,
actually ways to test, and I have a course on longevity where we teach people how to use biological age testing. So you could
yes,
have someone come into your group program 6 months,
yes,
a year, test their biological age and retest it 6 months or a
yeah.
year later and literally see themselves becoming physiologically younger, which is
Oh,
very
wow.
motivating, super
Yeah,
motivating. Really good
yeah.
technology around that.
So menopause, longevity, fertility, you said, right?
Fertility, and I
Yeah,
would say postpartum is strong, and all the pain conditions. So pelvic pain, vulvodynia, vulvar pain, sexual pain, and bladder incontinence issues.
and one thing you said earlier was like you tied like their pain with like the activity, right? Right?
Mhm.
So you're talking about pickleball and running. Is pickleball like one of those activities that you're seeing that like that is also trending with like these niches?
Well, it's true because anything that someone is going to lose their social network around is so
Oh, it's key.
valuable to them. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because it's not so much the sport. You're right. It's the social network, right?
Yeah. And that's what people want to get back to. They,
Yes.
sure, they like to play pickleball, but what they really like is to be with their friends. And
Yeah.
when they can't do that, it's
Yeah.
hugely disruptive. I mean, we know from data that, smokers with friends are healthier than non-smokers without friends.
Yeah. Wow. So what are those activities like pickleball, right? What else is there?
Pickleball is a big one. Running, I would say
Yeah.
any like
Well, most people run by themselves. I guess why I get actually no, I run by myself, but I would run more. I would probably run more if I had a social network, right?
yeah, I mean a lot of people run by themselves, but they often have like running clubs
Yes.
or that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Um, what else? I mean, like I said, menopause is a big thing just because people have no resources and their symptoms are so bothersome
Yeah.
that they'll come for anything related to that. Sleep, lack of sleep.
Yeah.
But other sports, I mean, I think you could even start, with collegiate athletes, people transitioning from collegiate athletics to life. What does that mean when they're going from having such a strict regimen to
High performance to back
transition?
to like normal life, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And also just high performance, like balancing
Yeah.
burnout is another big, sub niche that
Yeah.
people do well in.
Interesting. So, okay, so I love the program. I love like these niches talking about, right? So let's just say I'm a physical therapist, like you, 3 years out of school, right? I'm stuck with a shitload of student loans, like let's just say 200K. I'm gonna pay
Hmm.
35 bucks an hour, right?
Oh no.
And I like
Yes.
this idea that you're talking about, Jessica, and I'm gonna pay for your program, okay?
Mhm.
How do I actually how do I actually grow this like how do I market and like how do I like build like this community? Like how do I actually get leads to actually do this stuff, right? Like what
Yeah.
would you say like the top three, four things that I would do, right?
Well, it depends on what you like. So networking with, so it depends on like if you're going to build something that's fairly local,
Yeah.
being friends with every yoga studio, every CrossFit, every F45, every mom and baby group, whatever. Like, so that kind of doing workshops essentially in your local area is one way. Another way is doing workshops digitally. If you're, willing to reach globally, then you stay focused on your sub niche and you build a strongly converting workshop funnel that
Yeah.
works very well, which can be fed by organic traffic.
You just said my favorite word, funnel. I can't believe you just said that.
Yeah, I mean, you need some kind of funnel. It can be digital or it can
Okay.
be, in person.
Okay.
Speaking in some way is the fastest path because people then know who you are, they know your energy, there's a
But where would
connection.
you speak? Where would you speak?
Well, so you would either speak at local kind of organizations that are aligned with your target market, or you would speak by driving traffic to your own workshop, which you could do through organic social media. You could do
Okay.
through writing a book about your topic. You could do,
So
and
it
then
sounds like
pitching.
you have to actually really focus on building a personal brand on social media, right?
A person,
Is that important?
yeah, yeah, honestly, yes. Because here's the thing. I resisted that for a long time. And then I
Yeah.
learned that Tim Cook, who I don't know personally, but the only thing I know about him is he's a kind of a boring looking guy who leads
Yeah.
Apple. He
Yeah.
has like 10x more followers than Apple.
Yeah.
So that taught me that yes, you have to have some degree of a personal brand, especially with a business like this, because you are directly, you and or your team, but your team is kind of an extension of you in this case, are directly serving and collaborating with your clients, so they have to
Yeah.
have some relationship with you at some level.
Yeah. 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 100%, Yeah. The personal, like when you're buying something, you're buying like the person, not so much the company, right? Well, especially for
Correct.
my health product, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
And I mean, obviously you're buying their information and all of that, but
Yeah.
particularly with coaching, what you're buying, and I think more and more clinicians should be skilled at this too, is you're buying the ability to sit with someone who has a well-practiced, regulated nervous system.
Yeah.
It's so rare to be in the presence of someone who is just entirely there to
Mhm.
support your own healing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because usually you go to the doctor and you have to wait and you're left like in a cold room and you have no idea what's going to happen and how much it's going to cost. And it's like everything about it is stressful.
Yeah.
This is you're stepping into an environment where you're with someone whose presence is going
Yeah.
to help you heal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I would buy something like this.
You're my next client.
All right. So we talked about social media. We talked about speaking is a faster way to do it. Like the more like, local like organizations or businesses like you do, like the better. Like if your focus is on whatever, like, like menopause and pickleball, then like go talk to the pickleball, like, like
Yeah,
other.
go to every pickleball event you
Yeah.
can, be on pickleball podcasts,
Yeah.
you know, go to all
Yeah.
the pickleball clubs, any of those kind of things. Pickleball,
Yeah.
you can do Instagram lives with other pickleball experts, whatever.
Yeah. Interesting. And then what about these Facebook groups, like zoning in on like, like there's like everything that you talked about these niches, like there's all these Facebook groups and like, just going in there and participating and like adding value and not like selling stuff, not doing like these like promotions, but just like going in there and just answering questions, driving value. Like, is that something like that you've seen work quite well as well?
Yes, that can work as long as you're really mindful of just being supportive there so that you're attracting people to get curious about who you are. It's kind of like you
Okay.
said, like, I see you all over everywhere, which is really funny because we don't even have a very big social media presence compared to what the other things that we do. But it's just a place where I answer people's questions all the time
Yeah.
without doing anything else, really. And the other thing that you can very easily share inside of a group like that, that's high value and supportive and not salesy at all, is if you like, so if you are a pickleball and knee pain expert and you start your own podcast, and let's say somebody asks a question about something and you have a podcast or a
A
Instagram
blog.
short or a
Yeah.
blog or anything like that, on that, you can easily share the link and that helps them get to know you a little bit more. So blogs, podcasts are good, YouTube channels, anything where you can create high value content is shareable. And of course, you can create your own Facebook group.
Yeah.
And especially if it's very specific like that, one of the best things I ever did, whenever we think about building a Facebook group, we think about titling it anything that the people in the group would wear on a t-shirt. So it's not about you, it's about them.
Okay. Wow.
Everything about the group is about them.
Yes. 100%. So what?
So like
Wow.
it would be like,
What,
pickleball pros or something like.
what would it say on the t-shirt, right? That's what you're saying. And that's what
Yeah,
you should name the group, right?
that's what you would name the group. A t-shirt that your client would want to wear.
Okay. Okay. How to, I like that one. It's like how to name your Facebook group if you have one, right?
Yeah.
This is interesting. So you caught me off guard, Jessica, and I thought this conversation would be all clinically, and like now you're talking about funnels and like marketing. Just like you're blowing my mind right now, and I'm just like a bit of a high right now. So what is the best like? What's the best like lead generation funnel like that you've seen like your 2,000 like students like create over the years? You know that generated not necessarily them buying, but like a lead, like they got their emails or like and you can start nurturing them like so that like you could add more value, right?
Actually, one of our students, her very most successful, she had a really successful, she was, her practice is focused on hormone balance.
Okay.
And her, not necessarily in menopause, usually a little bit younger, people with like period issues. And she was in Europe. I forget the name of her practice off the top of my head, but she has a very successful quiz
Okay.
that was a really good top of funnel
Okay.
lead magnet. Yeah. So
Wow.
it was like people self-identifying if they had hormone imbalances.
Quiz for hormone imbalance.
Mhm.
Interesting. Right. And then what was the next step on that? Just grab their emails and then just get
Yeah,
an email
just get their
nurture.
email
Yeah.
and then a nurture
Yeah.
sequence. And then she had a
Okay.
group program based on that that was very successful.
Okay. Wow. Wow. This is the way to go. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, if you ask me.
So I'm curious, like, I work with a lot of like general orthopedic clinics, right? See, these are clinic owners that run a $500,000 clinic or 1 million or 2 million, or they have like 10 or 20 locations.
Mhm.
Do you see a world where these owners could actually run these niche programs within like these like call it, traditional establishment types of clinics?
I think so. I'm thinking about one of our graduates is up in, I think she's in Maine. It's somewhere in the Northeast. I'm pretty sure it's Maine. And she has a pretty traditional kind of ortho and pelvic PT practice.
Okay.
And then she started a group coaching program simply marketed to her own email list. Like one thing you can
Yeah.
do is if you already have a clinic,
Yeah.
just invite people in your own practice to essentially join, whether it's a longevity
Yeah.
kind of coaching program. I believe hers was around perimenopause and menopause based on her client population, but
Yeah.
it definitely, you could create a sort of, like I said, how curious would most people be to be like, what's my real biological age? You can talk about some case studies around that, and that's pretty interesting, where they could lower their actual age from 6 months or a year in a step-by-step program with you.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then the other thing is that could be, I think hers was actually, I don't know if she did it telehealth. You could do it telehealth, or which I would probably do, it would just be simpler. But you also have the option, if you want to integrate any physical activity, which
Yeah.
builds community, you
Yeah.
could actually do that within your practice.
Okay. Wow. But not a lot of traditional like orthopedic clinics are really doing this, right, Jessica? Would you
I
agree?
haven't seen it. I think there's a
Okay.
vast opportunity, but I'm
Yeah.
not really seeing it. I mean, I'd be happy
Interesting.
to help
So
them.
if you had someone doing this full time, what do you think that person could bill within in a year for a typical like orthopedic clinic that had that email list and they already have all these different marketing channels, but they just but they don't have this program, right?
Well, I think so. If I'm looking at a traditional outpatient orthopedic
Yeah.
practice, first thing I would do is I would assess what are my top diagnoses, and
Yeah.
then, do some surveying, like figuring out what are your client, and your PTs might know a lot of these answers. Like who is our population? And kind of back to that niching, what do they like to do? Because you can have just a knee program or something like that, but it's more interesting if it's aligned with the goal of the program, you know. And it could be just weight loss,
Yeah.
fitness, like there could be more general goals, and weight loss is a good one, sleep is a good one, things like
Yeah.
that. But I think it would be even better if they had a bit of a sub niche. Like, let's say they're in Colorado and they have a lot of people who want to ski, or, something like that. It would be like, that would be a really easy thing to market, like in August, to be like, prep for the ski season, 6 month program, or start it in September, 3 month program to prep for ski season. Then you can do nutrition, lifestyle, sleep,
Yeah. You
all
could
of
do it
the
for
things that you
everything like
do.
golf, ski, like every single activity, across the whole
Yeah.
entire year, right? So
Yeah, you could do those programs like quarterly for different
yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you had someone full time doing this, like what do you think like this this full timer could generate in terms of revenue a year?
Well, let's say they had, 25-ish people in the program,
Yeah.
and they did a 3 month program for, basically it's $1,000 a month or a little bit more per
Yeah.
person. So $25,000 a month year round.
Yeah. So that's like that's 300K. That's what you're telling me, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And you run 4 of these a year, right?
Yeah.
And like seems way easier than seeing 20 patients a day, right?
Oh, yes.
Would you agree?
I would agree. I mean, I would never go back to doing that for sure. And the thing is, you could see, in a sense, you're seeing 20 people in an hour,
Yeah.
and
You
they're,
are. You
and
are. This is
they're,
a very effective business model. Actually, quite.
and the thing is, you're probably getting just as good, if not better results. Now, here's the other important thing about this. Now, some of these people are going to need very specific one-on-one, hands-on physical therapy, or even exercise training, because they're just not going to have that body awareness, let's say. But then you can just funnel them right back into your practice to get that specialty care. And maybe they only need 3 sessions now to do it, because they're also eating an anti-inflammatory diet, they're tracking their stress, they're
Yeah.
sleeping better,
Yeah.
they're engaged with the community, they're
I
excited
just
about
like this
getting
because this is
better.
more of like holistic. Like this is like how this is like, like let's be honest. If you think about the physical therapy, the chiropractic like business model, it hasn't changed in the
No.
last like century, right?
Yeah.
It's still been the same. And if you look at all the other, like if you look at all the other professions, like they're moving up and like, scope of practice getting bigger and bigger, and then like we're still in our zone doing our own thing, and just following whatever instructions that the insurance companies tell us, right?
Yeah. And I mean, for me, people pay for fitness all the time. They pay
Yeah.
for apps, they pay for equipment. I mean, this is so much more effective. You're in a group of
Yeah.
25 people who all want to ski, who are talking about skiing with an
Yeah.
instructor who knows so much. And, you get support from each other, you're being cheered on, you're doing your
Yeah.
exercises because you have an accountability process built right in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Wow.
so effective. And like I said, I've done this now for almost 17 years for people with really complex chronic illnesses who are having surgeries, who have, multiple interventions, who are really sick sometimes, who get sick in the middle because they get COVID or, an autoimmune disease or something, and they do very well.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the most important thing, yes, it's highly revenue generating for sure,
Yeah.
but it's also a lot more effective, which is really the only reason I started doing it
And
in
you
the
can impact more
beginning.
people, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I mean, because when you think that way, like everything a person does has some impact on their health.
yes.
So that when they're really empowered in the driver's seat and you're holding really skillful space for them, and that's the skill set of coaching that most PTs need to learn. When
Yeah.
you learn the skill set of coaching, people then get their selves healthy. You're not like doing things to get them healthy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It does. Does. Wow. That's super, super interesting. So I'm curious now. So we talked about, these niche practices, I'm curious because you live in a very different world from a traditional, like, brick and mortar clinic, right?
Mhm.
I want to hear what do you see in the future? What's the future of the physical therapy profession like currently, Like what red flags do you see?
Well, I do see the expansion of a lot of here's what I see. I see direct to consumer access for everything. You don't need health professionals. So as I said, I've been really sick the last few years, and fortunately I know a lot and I have access to a lot of people and I have a lot of education in this area. But at the end
Mm,
of the day, people with long COVID know, I have doctors at Yale who know way less than me and almost any human who's living with long COVID right now because it's so new. But what
yeah,
we have access to is direct communication with other people with the same issue. We have direct consumer, lab testing, functional lab testing,
yeah,
telehealth with experts anywhere in the world.
yeah,
So, a colleague of mine, his name is Sachin Patel. He's a chiropractor up in Canada. He wrote a book maybe 5, 6 years ago, maybe a little longer ago, that said the patient or the doctor of the future is the patient.
yeah.
And I completely agree with that and have agreed with it since, because people have direct access to more information than their clinicians
Oh
have
yeah,
the ability to stay up with about
yeah,
their own situation. And then you couple that with things like text coaching by AI
yeah,
or outpatient, whatever, like stretching clinics and
yeah.
cryotherapy clinics
Stretch
and
labs,
IVs. Yeah, you can get anything you want
Yeah,
direct to a human.
yeah,
Now, sometimes people want to use their insurance, and there are
yeah,
like those subset of people who want to do that.
yeah,
But and I mean, I guess, that's fine, and that's going to stay at some level the way it is. But I think how physical therapists have to evolve is they have to start thinking, how can I best serve the clients that I most want to serve, because
yeah.
they have every option in the world. And so we have to create environments that build community, that build,
Mm.
healing relationships, because that's the thing that's missing almost everywhere.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, right? So, so, um, are you optimistic about the profession then? Because
I
it's
mean,
not like that right now.
is it
Or is
going
it
to
doom and gloom?
shift?
Because we're losing, like we're gonna be in the back seat compared to everyone else. I give you a good example. Like, so there's someone in the community who just like like they were a stretch lab. Have you been to stretch labs before?
I haven't, but I know what it is. I've heard of the
Okay,
concept. Yeah.
stretch labs is an amazing business model, right? So one of the guy in our community is a franchise owner, and like in 6 months like of opening, like the business went from 0 to 1 million in 6 months, right?
Mm, yeah,
And if you understand their business model, they do assisted stretching,
yeah,
right? And with assisted stretching is that they're just hiring people that look good with Lululemon pants, and like they're paying them 25, $30 an hour, to stretch them one-on-one or in a group, right?
yeah,
And people know what that is. They're like, yeah, that's all I need. Yeah, I just need a stretching. I don't know what physical therapy is, but I know what stretching is. So when I
yeah,
see this ad for like, from Stretch Labs, I'm like, I get that. I want that. It's like massage, like massage. I want to sell massages. Like I want a massage. I want stretch. I want assisted, like call it like stretching. And so it worries me when the profession is not like is competing with, there's so much like choices out there from a consumer to solve all those niches that you talked about, right?
yeah. I think that's how physical therapy has to evolve. Now, the people I'm surrounded by every day are physical therapists who think holistically, who are willing to learn marketing, who are,
Which is 5% of the population.
yeah. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe I'm isolated, surrounded by all those people because
You're in
I
a
built my
bubble,
own, I'm in my
Jessica.
own bubble. Yeah. But I'm surrounded by motivated
Okay.
physical therapists who care about integrative women's health. And
Okay.
so I think, and so they're very successful because
Right.
there is a very clear need for their service, and
Right.
we teach them how to skillfully communicate what it is that they offer.
Right.
And I think that's what you're saying, that the profession on a whole is not really doing that. I think none of the traditional healthcare professions are really doing that very well. But
Yes.
I think physical therapy is in a uniquely challenged position. It depends on what you're doing. There are some subsets of physical therapists that the patient doesn't really need to know that. Like if you're in an acute brain injury or
Yeah.
spinal cord injury or
You have
something
no
like that.
options. You have no choice, right? Yeah.
Right. And we need people that are highly skilled in inpatient acute
Yeah.
cardiopulmonology or whatever.
Yeah.
And even inpatient orthopedics. But when you're talking about outpatient orthopedics or women's health, you have to think in line with a new model of reaching what direct to consumer, what your clients need.
Yeah.
Because yeah, for a while people are going to go where their insurance told them or their doctor told them, but the doctors
Hmm.
are also really bad at this, so they're not going to help us in any way.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. This is gold. Okay, so let's talk about your program. So what does your program look like? Does it take like 6 months, 12 months, and then do you also teach them like the marketing aspects of the funnels? Like it's not just like obviously like there's the clinical component, but it's also how to market your practice as well.
Yeah, so we have our main program, which is where people generally begin, is the Women's Health Coach certification. So that is a board certified, third party oversight program where you can actually complete our program and get our certification, and then you can actually take a second level test to be board certified as a health coach, which is a true like board certification, just like you have to go into a testing center and all of that, like PT. It's like taking your boards.
Okay, it's like the
And
real
so
deal. Yeah,
it's a real deal. So this one is so you learn the skill set of coaching, which is the
yeah,
communication skill set. The
yeah.
second piece, so there are three pieces of it: coaching communication, which we
Okay,
teach in online training, and we have a faculty that works with you one-on-one and in groups. Everything is digital and telehealth, or not
right.
telehealth, but virtual. Then we teach functional nutrition. So we teach you how to do functional lab testing, supplementation, nutrition, lifestyle medicine, stress
Okay.
buffering. You learn to use all the wearable gadgets. Like we teach all of the things to create a
Wow.
lifestyle coaching practice.
Yeah.
And then the third piece is business training. So we do help people get super clear on their niche, how to kind of get their initial program up and running. And
Yeah.
then we have several certificate programs, which are kind of the advanced programs for. We have one in endometriosis, one in functional nutrition, where you can go even deeper. We have
Yeah.
one in perimenopause and menopause, one in longevity, And we also have one for business. So we have like a next level business where we help you, optimize your website and
Funnels.
your funnels and your, are you what's going to be your top
Wow.
of funnel? Is it going to be organic traffic or
Okay.
publishing or whatever? So we
Wow.
do teach that in 2 levels. And then
Okay.
we also have an alumni
And how
association.
long does it take? Like those first 2 levels? Yeah.
So to do the WHC certification,
Yeah.
we give you 18 months,
Okay.
but most people finish it in about 9 to 12 months.
Okay.
And we've had
So
a
in a
few
year. Yeah.
go-getters, especially during the pandemic, who did it in like 4 months. So you can power through it if you
You're not
want.
working, you could do it. You can probably do it in a month, right?
Yeah, so you can power through if you want. Then the other programs are all 6 months.
Okay. Oh, wow. So so if you're smart about within a year and a half, you should be able to like hit the ground running and actually start becoming like a health coach and start, say generating, 200 to 300K of like, billables a year, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That is super cool. And so how do people find out more about you, Jessica? Like where do they
Yeah.
go? Like your website, maybe your IG handle, right?
Yeah. Our website is integrativewomenshealthinstitute.com. And on Instagram, we're at Integrative Women's Health.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome to have you in show. That was like some massive like nuggets, like I love your talk so much that like it kind of, is not what I expected. And I'm very, very pleased that we actually got a chance to speak. I'm gonna get you to
Thank
speak at one
you.
of my events,
I would love
right?
to. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that would be amazing. So but thank you for being on the show and we will see everyone next week.
Thank you so much.